All right, so today we're going to be looking at some really cool stuff. You sent over a bunch of articles and demos about Google's Gemini 2.0, and even just skimming through this stuff, this feels like a major leap forward in AI.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot of buzz around Gemini 2.0, and for good reason, I think. It really seems like it's pushing the boundaries of what AI can do, especially when we talk about this idea of agentic AI.
Yeah.
So AI systems that can act independently and complete tasks for us.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit. What exactly makes Gemini 2.0 different from, like the chatbots that we've been seeing over the past year? Those have been pretty impressive. But this seems like something completely new.
Yeah, it's a combination of several key factors. The first is that Gemini 2.0 is natively multimodal. So this means that it can understand and work with not just text, but also images, audio, and video, and all together at the same time. So that's a huge jump from previous AI models, which were largely focused on just text processing.
So it's like it's got senses. It can see, hear, and understand all these different kinds of input. And that makes sense because the real world isn't just text.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second major difference, and that's agents. So Gemini 2.0 is designed to power these AI agents, which are basically AI programs that can follow your instructions, um, use tools like Google Search, and even interact with websites and apps on your behalf.
Now, you mentioned Project Astra in your notes. Is that one of these AI agents?
Yeah, Project Astra is Google's prototype for what they call universal AI assistant. So think of it as like a supercharged version of the voice assistants that we have on our phones today,
Yeah.
but with, much greater capabilities.
There's a demo where someone's walking through a museum
Hmm.
and asking Astra questions about the exhibits. But it's not just giving basic information. It's analyzing what the person's looking at, understanding the context, and even switching languages as they chat with their friends.
Right. Astra uses real-time video and audio input to understand your surroundings, almost like it has its own senses. It's not just responding to your commands, it's trying to understand your intent and provide helpful information in a very natural and intuitive way.
Okay, so that's Astra, helping us in the real world. But what about the digital world? You also mentioned Project Mariner.
Yeah, so Project Mariner is this experimental Chrome extension that allows AI agents to browse the web and perform tasks for you. It's still pretty early in development, but the potential is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Imagine if you gave it a list of companies in a spreadsheet and you asked it to find their contact information instead of doing all that manually, searching and copying all that data. The agent could open websites, go through the pages, and then extract the information automatically.
Exactly. And that's just one example. I mean, the possibilities are pretty much endless. Imagine having an AI agent that can help you research a topic, maybe book travel arrangements, or even manage your finances.
Wow. That sounds incredibly powerful. I mean, that sounds a little scary too. I mean, are we really ready to let AI loose on our bank accounts and personal data?
Yeah, that's a valid concern for sure, and it's something that Google's very aware of. They're emphasizing the importance of human oversight, when it comes to these AI agents. So Mariner, for example, only operates within your active browser tab. You can see what it's doing, pause it, stop it at any time.
So it's more of a collaboration
Mhm.
than a complete handoff. You know you're still in control, but you have this incredibly capable assistant to help you get things done. That's actually pretty reassuring.
Yeah, it is. And this idea of collaboration is really key to the whole concept of agentic AI. It's
Yeah.
not about replacing humans, it's about empowering us to do more and
Mhm.
achieve our goals more efficiently.
So we've got these AI agents that can understand the world and act on our behalf in both the physical and digital world.
Yeah.
Um, but what makes Gemini 2.0 itself so special? Like what's under the hood, so to speak?
Well, one of the key innovations is Gemini 2.0's ability to reason and problem solve in real time. So they've released this multimodal live ATI that allows developers to build applications where the AI can analyze live video feeds, audio streams, even gameplay, and provide feedback or suggestions in real time.
So you're saying like I could have an AI coach in a video game, like analyzing my moves
Yeah,
and giving me real-time strategy tips.
exactly. And not just like pre-programmed tips. The AI could actually be learning and adapting as you play, taking into account, your opponent's moves, your
Makes sense.
resources, the overall situation.
That sounds incredibly cool and maybe a little unfair to my opponents. But seriously, the possibilities are just mind-boggling. What other real-time applications are they looking into?
Well, we've seen some demos where they're using the API to analyze live video feeds from security cameras,
Mm.
identify potential threats, and then alert security personnel. They're also experimenting with applications in healthcare, where the AI could help doctors diagnose patients and monitor their vital signs in real time.
Wow. That's the potential really spans across every industry you can imagine. It's like we're stepping into a whole new era of computing.
Yeah, we are. And this era is all about AI becoming more interactive, more integrated with our lives, and more capable of helping us solve real-world problems.
This is definitely a lot to process. I need to let it all sink in for a second.
Yeah.
But I have one more question. You mentioned in your notes that Gemini 2.0 is also really good at understanding 3D environments. What exactly does that mean?
It means that Gemini 2.0 is not just recognizing objects and images, but it's actually starting to understand their spatial relationships and how they fit together in a 3D space.
So it's not just seeing a chair. It's understanding that the chair is next to the table.
Yeah.
And the table's in a room, and so on.
Exactly. And it can even start to map out these 3D environments, creating a virtual representation of the physical world. So think about the implications for robotics, augmented reality, even how we design our physical spaces.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing. It's like AI is starting to develop this spatial understanding of the world just like we do.
It is. And that's one of the things that makes Gemini 2.0 so exciting. It's not just about processing data. It's about understanding our world and interacting with it in a way that feels truly intelligent.
All right. I think I'm starting to get it. But before we get too carried away with all the amazing possibilities, I think it's important to talk about the potential downsides of this technology as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. With any powerful technology, there's always risks and ethical considerations that we need to address.
Yeah, and that's a perfect lead-in to the next part of our deep dive. We'll be discussing those very issues in just a moment.
It's easy to get caught up in all the amazing things that Gemini 2.0 can do. But as we move into this, this agentic era of AI, we really need to be careful about the potential downsides as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about AI that can act on its own, browse the web, potentially even control devices in the real world. Feels like there's a lot that could go wrong.
There is. And one of the biggest concerns is unintended consequences. AI systems are only as good as the data they're trained on. And even with the best intentions, there's always a risk of bias creeping in.
So like if an AI agent is trained on data that reflects existing biases in society, it could end up perpetuating those biases in its actions and decisions. That's a pretty scary thought.
It is. Imagine an AI agent that's designed to help with hiring decisions. But if it's trained on data that shows a bias against certain groups of people, it might end up recommending candidates that fit those biased patterns, even if they aren't the most qualified for the job.
And that could have real consequences for people, potentially leading to discrimination in hiring, lending, criminal justice, all kinds of areas.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to make sure that the data used to train these AI agents is diverse and representative, and that the algorithms themselves are designed in a way that mitigates bias.
So it's not just about building AI that's technically impressive. It's about building AI that's fair, equitable, and doesn't make existing inequalities worse.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole question of transparency. As AI agents get more and more sophisticated, it becomes harder to understand how they're actually making their decisions.
The whole black box problem.
Right.
Where you've got this AI that can do amazing things, but you don't really get how it works or why it's making the choices it makes.
Right. And that can make it really difficult to identify and fix bias, or even to hold these systems accountable for their actions. Like if an AI agent makes a mistake, who's responsible? The developer, the user, the AI itself.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And probably something that lawyers and ethicists are going to be arguing about for years.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why this whole idea of explainable AI is such a hot topic right now. Researchers are trying to find ways to make these AI systems more transparent, more understandable to humans, so that we can trust them more and control their actions better.
It seems like that transparency would be super important when we're talking about these agents that can do things for us, like Mariner browsing the web, or Astra guiding us around. I mean, we need to be able to trust that they're acting in our best interest and not being influenced by hidden biases or agendas.
Definitely. And that brings us back to that idea of human oversight that we talked about before. It's not about creating AI that's fully autonomous and operates without any human intervention. It's about building AI that can collaborate with us, allowing us to guide it, monitor it, and step in when necessary.
So it's like a partnership. The AI does the hard work, but we humans are ultimately in control, and we're responsible.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance between, leveraging the power of AI and making sure it's used ethically and responsibly.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the risks
Yeah.
and the ethical stuff, but let's zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk about a bigger picture. Like, how do you see this agentic era changing things? Like our lives,
Yeah.
our society, even our understanding of what it means to be human.
Well, that's the million-dollar question. And nobody really knows the answer for sure. But I think it's safe to say that this is going to be a transformative technology. It has the potential to affect almost every part of our lives.
Yeah. One of the first things that comes to mind is jobs. If AI agents can automate tasks that humans are doing now, is that going to lead to a lot of people losing their jobs?
That's a valid concern for sure, and it's something that people have been talking about for years. Some experts think that AI will actually create more jobs than it eliminates. While others are worried about mass unemployment and economic problems, I think the truth is probably somewhere in between.
It's almost like we're back in the early days of the Industrial Revolution, when new technologies were changing everything. Some people lost their jobs,
Yeah.
but there were also new opportunities,
Yeah.
new ways of life.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And just like we had to adapt to the Industrial Revolution, we'll need to adapt to this rise of AI as well.
So what does adapting to the agentic era actually look like? Like, do we need to change our schools, create new economic systems?
It's possible. It's hard to say exactly what the future holds, but we definitely need to start thinking about these things right now.
Yeah.
Be proactive instead of reactive.
Seems like the key is to be adaptable and to keep learning throughout our lives. We can't just hold on to the jobs, the ways of doing things that we're used to. We need to be open to new things and embrace the opportunities that AI might bring.
I totally agree. It's about seeing AI not as a threat, but as a tool that can help us, free us from boring tasks and let us focus on the things that make us human, like creativity, empathy, connection.
That's a really good point. It's a good reminder that technology is ultimately a reflection of us. We're the ones who shape it, guide it, and make sure it's used to make things better.
Well said. And I think that brings us to one of the key takeaways from our deep dive into Gemini 2.0 and this agentic era.
Okay, let's try to sum up what we've talked about. What are the
Mhm.
main points for our listeners to remember?
Well, we've seen how AI is becoming more advanced. It's not just about, generating text or recognizing images anymore. It's about AI that can interact with us, understand the world around us, and even act independently on our behalf. But we've also seen that with all this amazing power comes some serious risks and ethical challenges.
Right. We need to think carefully about how to prevent bias, make
Mhm.
sure things are transparent, and maintain human control as we enter this new era of AI.
Exactly. It's not just about building cool technology. It's about building technology that helps people
Yeah.
and creates a better future.
One thing we haven't really talked about is that all of this is being developed by Google, a company that has its own goals and its own potential biases. Does that worry you at all?
It does. And I think it's a conversation we need to be having. When you have one company controlling such a powerful technology, there are going to be questions about power, control,
Hmm.
and the possibility of things being misused.
It's like we're in uncharted territory here. We're not just talking about a new product or service.
Okay.
We're talking about a fundamental shift in how we interact with technology and with the world itself.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be having these discussions now, before these technologies become so embedded in our lives that it's too late to change course.
You're right. We need to be thinking critically about this agentic era and work together to make sure these powerful tools are used for good.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a really important question for our listeners to think about. As AI agents become more advanced and integrated into our lives, who's going to control these technologies? And whose interests are they going to serve?
That's a profound question. And I think we'll be wrestling with it for a long time, but it's an important one and one that deserves our full attention. So we've talked about a lot in this deep dive, from the incredible things Gemini 2.0 can do
Yeah.
to the ethical questions that come with this kind of powerful AI. But before we finish up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about this being a transformative technology.
Yeah. I really do think that Gemini 2.0 and this whole agentic era have the potential to really change our life in ways we can't even imagine yet, for better or worse.
It's amazing to think about all the great things we might be able to do with it, but I keep thinking about those potential downsides too. It feels like the stakes are really high.
Yeah, they
Right.
are. And that's why it's so crucial to be having these conversations right now. While it's all still relatively new, we need to be thinking critically about AI and what it means, both for us as individuals and for society as a whole.
You mentioned before that Google is stressing how important human oversight is. Do you think that's enough to deal with the risks?
I think it's a good first step, but I don't think it's enough by itself. We need to develop ethical frameworks, regulatory guidelines, educational programs, things that can help us navigate this new world responsibly.
It feels like we need a whole new set of rules for this agentic era. If the old rules just don't work anymore.
I agree, we're in uncharted territory, and we need to be ready for the challenges that are coming.
So what can the average person do to prepare for this future? I mean, it's all a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
Well, the most important thing is to stay informed and be part of the conversation. Don't just passively accept whatever new technologies they throw at us.
Yeah.
Ask questions, express your concerns, demand that these technologies be developed and used in a way that benefits everyone.
It's like we need to become more tech savvy, not just in terms of using the tools, but in understanding what they mean and advocating for responsible development.
Precisely. We need to be active participants in shaping the future, not just passive consumers.
I like that. It's empowering to think that we're not helpless, that we actually have a say in how these technologies are developed and used.
We absolutely do. The more informed and engaged we are, the
Yeah.
better we'll be able to handle the challenges and opportunities that are coming our way.
You know, thinking back to everything we've discussed about Gemini 2.0, I'm struck by how fast AI is moving. I mean, it feels like just yesterday we were amazed by chatbots that could write poems. And now we have AI agents that can understand our world, act for us, and maybe even reshape our society.
Yeah, it's a pretty incredible pace of innovation, and it's only going to get faster. I think the next few years are going to be super exciting and maybe a little bit scary too.
I'm both excited and a little bit nervous about what the future holds. But I do feel more prepared after this deep dive. Thanks for helping me make sense of it all.
My pleasure. It's always a great conversation when someone's genuinely curious like you
Yeah.
and willing to really think about the implications.
Well, I'm always up for a deep dive,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something as important as AI, and how it could change everything.
I think that's the perfect way to wrap things up. As we move into this new era of AI, it's so important to stay curious and to keep the conversation going. The future is being written right now, and we all have a part to play.
To our listeners, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Gemini 2.0 and the age of agentic AI. We hope this has sparked your curiosity and given you some things to think about. The future is full of possibilities, both good and maybe a little scary. And it's up to all of us to make sure that AI is used for the right reasons.